4 common oil leaks on OM617 turbo diesels. Before I get into this video, I'm going to command you to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. So like the video, share it with somebody who has an OM617 or wants one, and please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Okay, getting into it. We're going to talk about the 4 common oil leaks on OM617 turbo diesels, plus when I am done, at the end of this video, we're going to talk about a 5th leak that I didn't tell anybody about. And we are going to try to describe these leaks quickly and talk about what parts you need and how long they should take to repair. And of course, if there are any other leaks you want to share with our subscribers, describe them in the comments below. Thank you. Number 1 leak, turbo drain tube seal. This tube lies under the turbocharger, and you have a 2-part tube that collapses in on itself and rotates away. I should have a photo of this, but hey, at least somebody's telling you, right? These tubes can actually be removed without removing the turbo. You do need some extensions to get to the 2 13mm bolts on top. You will need a new oil drain gasket, 2 O-rings to the crush tube, and a turbo drain tube grommet. Now, if that lower tube won't come out, there's a really great method that I use to get it out, and it's a little destructive. Once I get the top tube off and clear and out, the bottom tube, you pick away all the remnants of the rubber bushing that you can, then you crush it with a vice grip, the tube itself, and you knock it out with a hammer. Now, why would I destroy the lower tube? Well, because a new one from Mercedes is $47.50 list price. And unless you want to drain your oil, pull your lower oil pan, and knock the tube out from the bottom, which is also a good method, I found that this quickly allows me to get the tube out and put a brand new tube in place that doesn't have a wear groove where the grommet sits anyway. Yes, it's a little destructive, but it saves a lot of time. So if you're working on these cars, like Stuart Carter, Garrett Lumen, or some other subscribers of mine who have shops, this does give you a faster way to resolve this issue instead of standing there with a little pick tool trying to get all the old grommet out. Number 2 leak is the oil filter housing gasket. This gasket is notorious for seeping after it gets to be 15, 20, 25 years old if it's not the composite metal fiber gasket. The fast way to get to this gasket is to disconnect the steering box at the steering column and slide the coupler in the box out of the way and down so that you have better access to not only the oil cooler hoses, but the bolts that hold the housing on as well. And if you get a new flange gasket, that's a bonus as well. The flange gasket is different on a 300 SD than on a 123, unless you have 116, and then it takes the same type as a 123. But get the flange gasket as well. A third really common oil leak on the OM617 is the drain tube under the air cleaner. Why? Because nobody ever puts it back. If the drain tube that drains oil out of the oil separator down to the pan comes loose, then it's going to leak everywhere because all the oil that's supposed to drain back to the pan goes in the ground. If your air cleaner is loose or broken, you may want to remount it, put new seals in the U-pipe, and make sure that that air cleaner is sitting on top of the drain pipe so that you don't get an oily mess everywhere. Number 4 is the valve cover gasket. This gasket, especially if it's misinstalled, can leak like crazy out of the back. So if you have a mystery oil leak leaking down the side of the motor, check the valve cover gasket and make sure that the valve cover gasket is seated on there properly. Also, if you put a new gasket on and the oil is still seeping out, pull the gasket and make sure that your valve cover actually sits flush on the 4 posts that it mounts on. If it wobbles or shakes, it may not be sitting straight when it goes on the motor. You can use a small brass shim on the different posts where the valve cover sits to try to get it to be level, but you want to use a very thin shim. If you flip the valve cover over, there are 4 mounting points. Make sure they're not crushed or deformed. Now, if you made it this far, Please like, share, and subscribe. And now I'm going to tell you the last leak. The last leak are the oil cooler lines. And I'm sure a lot of you know about this. But if you don't, and you're new to the world of Mercedes, these are very important. They have to be checked for leaks. They are complicated to replace, but Mercedes, contrary to popular belief, still sells all the 617 turbo diesel oil cooler lines. So don't think that they're not available. They just changed part numbers so that they're not available under their old numbers. These hoses are about $275 a pair from Mercedes, and that's where I recommend getting them because they use a very long life rubber hose. You have to remove the motor mount arm on the left side to get to them. But once you remove the motor mount arm, removal and installation of the lines is very straightforward. Anyway, thank you and enjoy working on and resolving oil leaks on your classic Mercedes. And when you're tightening those oil cooler lines in the cooler, don't forget to use a counter hold on the nut on the cooler. It's 22 millimeters in case they're seized on. See you guys later.